Okay, welcome. We're going to be doing the plan, the blueprint for the bottom of our toolbox. This is our cube toolbox, and this particular plan calls for an 11-inch long bottom, which I have here, but the sheet metal is going to be a 12 by 14 and 3/8. So if your sheet metal is a different size, you'll have to adjust accordingly, and you can keep the 1/2-inch tabs here and the 3/8 inch hem, and then change everything. But if you do that, just know that you're going to have to change the size of your lid as well. So what do we have going on? We have the front of our toolbox, which is 4 inches. The back of our toolbox is also 4 inches. So our toolbox bottom is going to be 4 inches tall. On the front side, we have this hem that's going to fold over, and that's going to protect to make sure our front side is not sharp. Okay, I have that set as a 3/8 inch. Just to give some rigidity and also make that a nice round finish edge. We do not need that on the back because our piano hinge is going to go and get fastened on the back. So that's going to cover up this single ply metal edge on the back. On the bottom and top sides, we have these 1/2-inch length tabs that are going to be folded up, and that's going to secure the end of our toolbox once we draw and cut out the ends. So let's get started in our drawing. We're going to start with just doing a rectangle, which is 14 and 3/8 long by 12 inches wide. So I'm going to jump into a new drawing, okay, and I'm going to grab my line tool. We're going to go across. And so if you don't have your ortho mode on, turn it on, F8, and we're going to do 14 dash 3/8 for 14 and 3/8. Okay, lock that down. You can zoom in with your wheel if you want to get it kind of centered and pan. And then this is going to be 12 inches tall or wider. Okay, now I want to show you something. There's a tool. If I don't want to type these in, it will save you time in the long run if I show you real quick. Okay, I can hover here, but if I go down and I turn on this tool here called Object Snap Tracking. This is a pretty cool tool. I just turn it on. Now if you notice, I bring my mouse down and I want to make this line the same length as this line down here. So if I hover my mouse on this endpoint and then I bring it up, it's going to show and snap track that it will lock this into the same length. I click on that then when I bring my mouse to that location. Now I can go down here. That allows me to make a rectangle real easy with only typing in my length and my width. Okay, so let me redo that real quick. I'm going to do just if you want to try to follow along. So it's going to be 14 dash 3/8, okay, and then up 12. Those are the only two dimensions I'm going to put in. I have my tracking turned on, okay, and then I'm going to hover my mouse on the end point for my length and bring that up, and I'm going to click. Okay, that locks it into the same length, and then I go down here and I click on end point for there. If your end point for here is not showing up, you will have to turn on your object snap and make sure end point is selected. All right, that's done. Now most of the rest of this is going to be offset tool. So the first thing I want to offset is my 3/8 inch hem. So go to offset here. And this is going to be, the reason I'm going to do this is you'll see in a second. So I'm going to do 3/8. Okay. So I bring my right side in, and that's set to 3/8. Now let me throw some dimensions on here so that if you're following, you can type those based off of what you see on the screen, and you can dimension as you go as well, and that way you can make sure if something is not turning out, you can adjust it. So before I put the dimensions in, I'm going to go into annotation. We're going to change it into fractional mode. So dimension here. We're going to go down to modify. If I do this first, I don't have to worry about converting it. Let's change our primary units from decimal to fractional. Okay, I did this already when I was practicing this in the video. So my text is large enough for you to see. I'm going to do mine at 1/4 inch, so 0.25. You can leave yours at 0.18 if you want. That's kind of the standard default. I'm going to set this as my current, and I am going to close. Now, let me just grab this dimension here. I'm going to drag it up so you can see it there, and this one over here. All right, and I might as well do this 3/8 while we're at it. So I'm going to go 1 and 2. Now, if that did that, okay, I want you to know, go right away and delete this, because that dimension, this 12-inch dimension on this line, is going to really mess you up in the future. So I just need to zoom in more to get this to snap to 1. And I'm going to bring, what it's doing is it's trying to snap into the middle of this line. So if it's giving me this perpendicular or midpoint, is not going to get me this 3/8. So I have to drag along here till it says 3/8. Okay, once you do that, then you're golden. So just to know if it's not cooperating, that's kind of how you override it on the program. Now, the reason I did 3/8 first is because now our next offset is going to be 4 inches, and we can do that on both sides because the front and the back is 4 inches. So just do offset distance 4, enter, and we're going to do this one to the inside. So there to the inside, that's 4, and here to the inside. Now, if we do that, our measurement in the middle should be 6, and that's going to be our check step to make sure everything looks good. So let's dimension this as well. I'm going to come onto this line, click one time. I'm going to ignore that 12, but I'm going to bring it over, and I'm going to slide up and down until I get a nice 4 on here. And then, now if 4 is attached, I can go over here and have it line up with my 3/8. There. Okay, same thing now. I'm going to go on this line, just grab this line, go over here, gets the 6. I'm going to drag it up and line it up with the 4. I'm going to go here, click here, make sure it says 4, so slide up and down until it says 4. Go up here, click, and now all of. So if you do not have 4, 6, 4, and 3/8, something is going a little bit fishy. Maybe your overall measurement isn't 14 and 3/8, but that should work for you. Now, what do we need to do next? Let's look at our drawing. We need to put in these 1/2-inch tabs. So my overall measurement is 12. We're going to offset this a 1/2 inch to the inside and this a 1/2 inch to the inside, and that's going to give us an 11-inch bottom and these 1/2-inch tabs. So we'll do that, and then we'll worry about the triangles here. So grab your offset tool again, set it to 0.5 or 1/2 inch, and bring the top to the middle and bring the bottom to the middle. Okay, so that part's done. When you're drawing this on your sheet metal, if we're going to use the notcher tool that we have in the shop, you do not have to draw these out accurately. You can just put a little V in here so you know that that's where you're notching, because you're going to line up your notcher with this point. But on our drawing, we want to do that. So let's grab our line tool, and we need to turn on our polar tracking. This is going to allow us to give a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to set this to make sure 45 is on. By default, it's probably 90. You don't want it 90, you want this 45. Okay. Now, when we do that, I'm going to zoom in here so we can see both of these, and we're going to do it twice. So I'm going to find this intersection. It's not letting me get the intersection. So if that's your case, make sure intersection's turned on under my options here. Here's intersection. Okay. And we want this snap tracking turned on. I'm going to grab my line now. There's my intersection, this little X, and I'm going to drag it up and past, because if I have it here, it's not going to be 45. You can see my angle changes there. So I'm going to drag it past here. Now I'm locked into 45 and enter. I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, drag it up and past. Give me those green tracking lines and lock it in. And we have a nice 45-degree angle. What we can do now is we can grab the trim tool, and I can use this. I can go one by one by one and cut all these out. Or if I hold my mouse down here, I can drag and draw this little snake-like line and go through all of these little points at one time and clean those out, and it erases all those. And that's what we want it to look like. So if you didn't catch that the first time, I'm going to do it again here real quick. Grab my line tool, make sure your polar tracking is set to 45. Intersection here, drag it up until it gives me this green snap to 45 degrees. Enter, and repeat, going the opposite direction. Enter, and clean up. So you go trim, 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 or we can do it the other way around. Now this, we're going to grab our trim tool here. We're going to trim these two out first, okay, and then I'm going to cut this down at a 45. Let's do this. I don't know how this got moved. Let me move this back down. You should not be up there. All right. So I'm going to grab my line tool now, and I'm going to go from this intersection down to 45. Okay. Does this really have to be a 45? No, but we want some kind of relief on there, and 45 is easy to do with the notcher tool. So that's why we have it at a 45. It could be a 60 degree or something like that. But when we fold this hem over, we don't want it to interfere with the rest of our box. So that's why we're doing it there. Now, let's repeat on the bottom, except our arrows are going to go down instead of up. So I go from this intersection down to 45, there it is, and snap, enter, repeat, and there, snap, enter, okay, You can do it however you want. You can keep drawing and then go back and clean up, or you can kind of trim those out as you go. We're almost done with this drawing. We have a few more dimensions to put in here, and this one goes up at a 45. Now we're going to go clean these up, trim. I really like this method where you depress the button and drag a nice little line through everything you want to delete out. It kind of makes it simple and easy. And I'm going to do the same thing here and here. All right. This is what our print should look like. So when you get your sheet metal in class, the ones that I have, at least for this year, are set up where they're pre-cut to this size, because that's how we divided up our larger pieces. So you have nothing to cut on your metal except these little V's and notches out of here and everything else. So don't go cutting an inch off, just keep it at that. I'm going to do some dimensioning here. I'm going to move this back up, for somehow this didn't line up again. All right, and now what do we have to dimension here? We want to dimension that these are 1/2 inch tabs. They're typical, so we only have to do it on one side. So let's grab my dimensioning tool, and we can put that, where do we want to put that? Maybe over here. I'm going to zoom in. There's one. I'm going to drag it down until it says 1/2 inch. Okay, and I don't want it to be too confusing here. What we could put, I can bring this up to the top here, and I kind of like this. It's a 1/2 inch, but we can also, if I double click on here, this is kind of a neat little thing just so that you remember. We can label this 1/2 inch tabs. Okay, and that's just an easy way for you to remember. What do we have? What else do we have? This is labeled. We need to label our measurements here. This is going to be a 9. So how do we dimension an angle here? I'm going to zoom in. I grab my dimension tool, and I want this to say this is a 90-degree cutout. So if I click on this first line, there's one. I drag my mouse over here to the second line, okay, and it should say 90 degrees. I want it to measure 90 degrees for the cutout. So either here or here, whichever you feel is cleanest and easiest for you to read. That shows this is 90 degrees. Now I also want to show that how this lines up. This is going to be 45 degrees to our actual fold on the tab. So I'm going to have the cutout is 90. I'm going to redimension over here just so we have that note. From here to here is 45. So I'm going to drag until it says 45. Move that around until I like the angle here, something like this. Move it till you find that that's pretty clean and easy to read, and you can always adjust it if you don't like where it landed, and kind of clean it up and set it like that, maybe like that. So if that makes sense, the last thing that we have to do, we got 4, 6, 4. Let's do the inside length of the box, or it could be here for these tabs. I can go actually from here to here is 11 inches and bring that out. That's nice, neat, and close to the 12 inch. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't have to do this part because that's just the angle. And the last thing I want to do, let's put some text on here, call it our Cube Toolbox bottom, Cube Toolbox bottom, and put your name on it and your hour, please. Okay, and I'll just put my name, and then we're going to render it. So if you want to refresh, or if you didn't remember how to export a PDF, then thanks for joining me in the video. If you want a little review, I'm going to review that here. I'm going to change my layout mode, go down here to layout, and we're going to go and turn off our grid. So I do that by clicking on paper, and we're going to turn our grid off here. There's paper mode, grid. We're going to auto zoom to here, and then I'm going to go back to model mode, and let's see here. I can make this a little bigger on my sheet when I'm in model mode where it says paper by just dragging these corners a little bit up, and then let's do this auto zoom. I'm going to go back here, kind of tweak that, and that's about as big as we want to go. So last step, AutoCAD, go down to export here as a PDF. We're gonna, I didn't spell cube right. Hold on. I'm sorry about that. Typo. All right, and then we go export PDF, and we're gonna save it in our metals one. We're gonna call it toolbox bottom with your name and your hour. Okay, this is one for video. I'll save over the old one here and submit that then. Thank you for joining me in today's build, and look forward to seeing how yours turns out in the shop. We'll see you in the next one.